LSU left tackle Tyrie Adams could be done for the year. It's Carius Curne's time to shine. We've got the latest Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. We have had a very eventful Thursday here, less than 48 hours before LSU and Texas A&M are set to kick off Saturday in Tiger Stadium. Recording this on Thursday night, where Brian Kelly had his media availability after practice Thursday, and then his coach's show. So as not to bury the lead, Brian Kelly did not disclose this during his media availability, but on his coach's show, he's talking with the voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, who asks about left tackle Tyrie Adams. Remember, Adams injured his left ankle in the first half, or injured his ankle, I should say, the left tackle, injured his ankle in the first half against Vanderbilt. He was replaced by DJ Chester. He has already been ruled out for this week. But according to Brian Kelly, it's going to be a lot longer absence for Adams.
So he had Tyrie Adams from the O-line, unfortunately, out.
Yeah, he had a tightrope surgery, which is the surgery that they do for high ankle sprains. So he had that surgery on Tuesday. And that generally takes, 4 to 5 weeks to come back. So maybe we'll have him by the end of the year, maybe not.
We certainly hope so.
So 4 to 5 weeks, the tightrope procedure. If you're a long-standing LSU fan, you'll remember the first time we heard about the tightrope procedure was in 2019 when Tua had the tightrope procedure before LSU played Alabama in that classic game in Tuscaloosa in the 2019 season. But it's a procedure that, as you heard Brian Kelly say there, will cost you 4 to 5 weeks. Well, if you just project, that would really take you to either Western Kentucky or Oklahoma if you're able to get back by then. So maybe by the regular season finale, if at all, for Tyrie Adams this season. What was maybe even more interesting, because we knew that Adams was going to miss this game. That wasn't a surprise. But the big surprise was that Brian Kelly said it will be true freshman Carius Curne starting at left tackle against Texas A&M, not DJ Chester. Now, this is relevant because when Adams was injured against Vanderbilt, it was DJ Chester who replaced him at left tackle in that football game. Chester ended up playing against Vanderbilt 38 snaps, all of them at left tackle. And on Monday, when Brian Kelly met with reporters, he said that with Adams out, we knew on Monday Adams was going to be out. He explained why they chose to play Chester at left tackle. They were choosing to move forward with Chester. This is why.
That's the best fit for us as 5, for the 5 guys that we're going to put out there. That's our best situation. Moving Josh over there is not going to do it for us. DJ's played a full game there at tackle already this year. As you know, he played the entire Florida game. Based upon that, and he virtually played the entire game against Vanderbilt, other than the first 12 plays. He had one stumble where his foot got caught in the ground on the turf, and we had a sack that was given up. But by and large, he did what was expected of him. And I have confidence that he can go out there and do the job. Like I said, they've got an outstanding pass rusher over there. 9 or 50 is pretty good, too. We'll have to help. We'll have to do some things to get the ball out quickly. But I feel like if we do that, we've got a guy that's played a lot of football.
He's not wrong. So in 3 seasons at LSU, DJ Chester has played 1,148 snaps. He has played a lot of football, started all 13 games in 2024, but again, started all 13 games at center. Coming into this year, You brought in Braylon Moore. That moved Chester out of the center spot throughout fall camp. Chester was not playing tackle. He was repping as the number 2 center and also competing for one of the guard spots. So they've looked at Chester as an interior player. But he's a guy that played a bunch, and so they've been using him as a swing player. Adams was injured against Clemson. What happened? Chester went in for 4 snaps at left tackle in that game against Clemson. In the game against Louisiana Tech, Braylon Moore went down on the first snap of the game. Chester went in, played 82 snaps at center against Southeastern Louisiana in the second half. Went in, played 18 snaps at center after the starters were pulled. Against Vanderbilt, played left tackle, played 38 snaps whenever Adams went down with injury. So we've seen Chester move on both sides of the line, play center guard tackle, can play anywhere, and he has been a more experienced player. But the kicker here is Carius Curne has been repping at left tackle all throughout fall camp. Throughout all of fall camp, Carius Curne was your number 2 left tackle. It was Adams as your first team left tackle. When the 2s went in, Carius Curne was repping as your second team left tackle. Now, maybe part of that, of course, was Chester was repping as your second team center, so he couldn't play 2 positions. So Curne went in. But I'll also remind you that against Ole Miss, Weston Davis injured in pregame warmups. Chester was unavailable for the first half because of his targeting foul the prior week against Southeastern. And so Carius Curne played the entire game at right tackle. And in the second half, when Chester was available, they kept Curne at right tackle. And in that game, Curne's pass blocking grade was over 80 from Pro Football Focus. Curne played really well in that game on the road when he found out 15 minutes before he was going to start. My contention is and has been Carius Curne's one of your best 5. He's not one of your most experienced, so I understand what Brian Kelly's saying. You've got a real challenge this week with Texas A&M, which is top 10 in the country in sacks and TFLs. They're outstanding in their defensive front. They brought in a couple of transfer defensive ends. They hit on both of them. They've both been really good. But on Monday, again, this is a change. Remember, on Monday, Brian Kelly explained why they were going with Chester and also explained why they weren't going with Curne.
We're in a situation now where, we've got a matchup this weekend against a veteran team and, a great pass rusher, certainly. And Carius is coming on. But to throw a true freshman in there, I don't want to put him in that situation. I could see him playing, but I prefer to play a guy that's had a lot of experience at that position. And knowing that whoever's at that position with number 9, you've got to help. you got to get somebody that chips. You got to put a tight end over there, elongate the pocket. You've got to do a lot of things in the pass game to help whoever's playing over there.
I mean, that was Monday. Monday, Brian Kelly said, Adams is out. They're playing Chester because they want the experience. They like Curne a lot, but they're going with the experienced guy against A&M. That was Monday. Thursday, Brian Kelly has flipped that. And Carius Curne is going to be starting at left tackle against Texas A&M. And I love it. Carius Curne is a freshman. He's a 5-star. He has the highest ceiling maybe of anybody on this offensive line. He is physically gifted. He's 6'5", 320 pounds, can do a backflip. He has the physical, athletic ability to kick, slide, get out in space, and pass block. He has the mean, nasty streak to get into someone's pads and move their bodies. You don't always have that. Kelly has compared him to Emory Jones as a freshman. He's going to make some mistakes, but he's got the physical ability. He's got the mean streak, and I love the fact that Curne is going to get this opportunity. I don't think it's going to be flawless. But we also saw DJ Chester last week in that game against Vanderbilt, and his pass blocking grade was a 37.9. A 37.9. That is wholly unacceptable in the Southeastern Conference. For a starter, for a guy playing that much football, you cannot rely on Chester. Listen, I like DJ Chester, but DJ Chester is a guard. He was a liability last year at center because he's not a center. He was a liability against Vanderbilt at left tackle because he's not a left tackle. He's a 6'6", 320-pound guy that needs to put his hand in the dirt, line up with someone in front of him, and fire off the ball and move that body or at least get in the way. That's what he is. He doesn't need to be kick sliding out in space against athletic edges. He doesn't need to have his hand on the football calling out the mic. He needs to put his hand in the dirt and move bodies. DJ Chester is a guard. Eventually, they'll put him at his natural spot, and he'll play the best that that he can or will in his career when he plays his natural spot. But Carius Curne is a tackle. He's athletic enough to play tackle, and this is the right decision, and I'm excited to see how it plays out Saturday with Curne getting his second start. First on the road at Ole Miss at right tackle, now against Texas A&M at home at left tackle. Now, speaking of Texas A&M, the other side of the ball is the good-on-good matchup. The Texas A&M offense against the LSU defense, and Brian Kelly on Thursday evening broke that down, in particular, how LSU tries to stop Marcel Reed this go-round. We'll talk about that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, how about Trey Green with that first touchdown reception? Or maybe the 62-yard catch and run by Xavier Thomas, which brought LSU closer there in the second half. An outstanding individual effort. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. So the Tigers take on Texas A&M, and while we have spent a lot of time talking about how this LSU offense might get going, the flip side of it is the matchup that likely is going to determine this game is if the LSU defense can play well enough to limit the Texas A&M offense to keep LSU in this football game. Now, one thing worth keeping in mind, as we record this on Thursday night, roughly 48 hours before kickoff, there's about a 75% chance of rain Saturday night for LSU against Texas A&M. And please spare me the "it never rains in Tiger Stadium" line. I don't know where it started. I don't care. It's stupid. It rains all the time in Tiger Stadium, and it's probably going to rain Saturday night. So Brian Kelly said they've been preparing with a wet ball this week.
We have, used wet ball all week on offense, preparing for weather. And that's just simply using a water bottle, spraying the ball, and making sure that, if the weather is wet, we still have to execute, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
It'll be fascinating to see if, in fact, it does rain, which team is affected more. My thought is Texas A&M, high-flying offense, high-powered offense. Rain, weather tends to slow the offenses down. Probably, LSU's offense is slow enough as it is, but it probably benefits the LSU defense if the weather limits Texas A&M on the offensive side. Now, LSU's going to have to deal with Marcel Reed, and we all know the story of a season ago. LSU had that game in firm control. They had played so well that Texas A&M pulled quarterback Connor Wegman. LSU was up 10, and A&M couldn't move the football until they put in Marcel Reed. And, of course, he ran for 3 touchdowns in the second half, and LSU started turning the ball over.
Last year, he came in as a replacement, right? He wasn't the starter. And so, there's learning going on. You're not sure what he can do. They became more comfortable with him. And then him with the offense through spring and preseason camp as the number one, it starts to open up the playbook. And that's essentially what they've done. They've opened up the playbook with him.
And it's one of the things that Brian Kelly said they've had to do this week is prepare for a running quarterback, which the benefit for LSU is they've already seen it. Last week with Diego Pavia, 2 weeks ago with Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, it's heavily influenced, and they know it. They saw it, right? They've seen it the last couple of times. They did a really good job with, Sellers, forcing him to go east and west instead of north and south. He ran a lot of, yards going east and west. We have to do that and continue to do that. We didn't do a very good job against Vanderbilt with that, and so you can imagine that was a point of emphasis. You could hear that on the practice field every single day this week.
Now, the big change, of course, is with Sellers. He ran east and west, and they didn't allow him north and south. With Pavia, the plays that Pavia made for Vanderbilt weren't designed quarterback runs. It was broken plays where LSU maybe lost contain. And that's really what they have to avoid. But the biggest difference between South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and what they're going to see this weekend with Texas A&M has been Marcel Reed's ability to throw the football and stretch the field through the passing game. A&M has 2 receivers that they brought in via the transfer portal. Concepcion from NC State, Craver from Mississippi State. Craver on the season averaging 18.7 yards per reception. Concepcion averaging 15.2 yards per reception. Craver's got 4 touchdowns with a long of 86. That was the 86-yarder against Notre Dame on the road. Concepcion has 6 touchdowns with a long of 45. That 45-yarder was at Notre Dame as well. Because, see, for Marcel Reed, one of the things about him is that he has become far more effective throwing the football. But that game against Notre Dame, which is their marquee win, it was really highlighted by those 2 big passing plays. Because other than that, it was a 17 of 37 day passing for Marcel Reed. It wasn't a consistent day, but they hit a couple of big plays. And Brian Kelly knows that that's the difference in the defensive strategy this time against Texas A&M as opposed to last year.
But we knew those issues Sunday, right? And we've been planning, for what we have to do defensively. And it starts with you have to stop the run. They have, and we just mentioned, they have guys now that can push the ball down the field. So if you put an 8-man box there, you're going to get one-on-one down the field. So it's a chess match. Sometimes you got to show coverage. Sometimes you got to be able to play man on man and whip some blocks up front and win in the run game. You can't always stack it, and you can't always play soft because they're going to be able to run the football. So that's why they're number 3 in the country and scored 40 points in 2 out of the last 3 games, I think. So.
One of the things that is important to note when we talk about injuries is we focused at the start on Tyrie Adams. Brian Kelly did say on Thursday, and with the availability report coming out Thursday night, both Jamari Butler and Bernard Gooden are probable for the game on Saturday. So when you think about LSU in that defensive front and facing off against this Texas A&M offense, that's with 4 returning starters on the offensive line, arguably, I would say, the best offensive line in the SEC. A quarterback that can run it. No Le'Veon Moss. They're down their best running back, Baton Rouge, a Struma product who's out with an ankle injury. But they've got Reuben Owens. They got Daniels as well. They got E.J. Smith, Emmett Smith's son, who, he'll be a 3 to 5 carry type running back. But they got options there. So you get Bernard Gooden back on the interior. You get Jamari Butler back. That's going to allow you to stay fresh at those positions. Even if Gooden with the collarbone can't give you 50, 60 snaps, if he can give you 15 snaps, take a couple of series, that keeps you fresh across that defensive front as you try to handle this Texas A&M running game on Saturday in Tiger Stadium. So the Tigers getting a little bit healthier on the defensive side. As we've talked about all week, Whit Weeks is not going to play in this game. He is officially listed as doubtful, but I've been telling you since Monday, really since last Friday, that they're going to be without Whit Weeks for several weeks. And I think the hope is after the bye, you could get Weeks for the Alabama game. I don't even know that that's realistic. We'll continue to follow that and see how it goes. But you will have very likely Butler and Gooden back, which will help fortify that defensive front against a very good Texas A&M offense. An A&M team that is ranked 3rd in the country and is warranted having that ranking, but an A&M team still with a lot to prove. And we'll wrap up today's episode with a quick thought on that. The areas why, maybe just why, the odds makers aren't crazy thinking that this could be a coin flip type game. We'll get to that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. It's almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. For the LSU Tigers, how about, as we mentioned a bit ago, Xavier Thomas delivered in a big way. A 62-yard catch-and-run touchdown in the second half when the Tigers had to have it. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week and even year after year, that performance from Xavier Thomas was no fluke. Xavier Thomas is on a streak. And just like Thomas delivered for the Tigers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save over $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. And we're brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play, building parlays, player props, even following live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. That's FanDuel.com. You know, earlier this week when the initial line came out for LSU and Texas A&M, there were a lot of people that were maybe a little perplexed. The fact that it opened with Texas A&M as just a 1.5-point favorite. Now, it's been bet to 2.5, where it sits as we record this on Thursday night. But suffice to say, most people would assume that Texas A&M, given the fact that they're undefeated, they've had a pretty high-powered offense, really good defense, they're 7-0, 4-0 in the conference. LSU, meanwhile, is 5-2, coming off a loss to Vanderbilt, one of two offenses in the country in the FBS yet to score 25 points against an FBS opponent. It's just LSU and North Carolina, the Fighting Belichicks. There's a lot of reason to really think Texas A&M is the side in this game. Yet, here it is with the line inside of a field goal. Well, why? Look, there's a lot of objective truths about this Texas A&M team. They're 7-0 overall. They're 4-0 in the SEC. They're ranked third in the country by the pollsters. The SP Plus ranks them number 7. FPI ranks them 10th. Their strength of record, number 1 in the country. Their strength of schedule, number 16. Their remaining strength of schedule is 12th. They have 3 road games against ranked teams still remaining. And the metric that the goofballs in that hotel ballroom in suburban Dallas love to talk about, game control. They're 8th in the country in game control. So you're talking about a team that, whether you're looking at objective data or subjective metrics or analytics, they pass the test. There's a reason that everybody has them ranked and rated where they are, both in the subjective and objective metrics. But there are reasons for doubt with Texas A&M. They are 7-0, but they played one ranked opponent. That was Notre Dame on the road in South Bend. And if you remember, Texas A&M got an 86-yard touchdown in that game. They had a 45-yard catch and run as well. And they scored the game-winning touchdown with 13 seconds left to win 41-40. Now, you could look at that and say, what great moxie, what great determination, making plays in the clutch late to win it on the road. And all of that is true. But so too is it true that they gave up 40 points to Notre Dame on the road in South Bend. Texas A&M is undefeated in conference play. They're 4-0 in the SEC. They lead the conference. But their 4 league wins were against Auburn, which is 0-4, Mississippi State, which is 0-3, Florida, which is 2-2 but has fired their coach, and Arkansas, which is 0-3 and has also fired their coach. That's not exactly checking the boxes against the top teams in the conference. Now, as I mentioned, they got 3 games remaining on the road against ranked opponents, LSU, Missouri, and Texas. So, and a home game against South Carolina. So we'll see, and they'll have plenty of opportunities to continue to prove it, but certainly they haven't had the heaviest lift yet. I mentioned the 2 road games they played, at Notre Dame, at Arkansas. In both of those games, Texas A&M's defense allowed more than 40 points. They allowed 40 points to Notre Dame, 42 points on the road this last week against Arkansas. And you could say to me, Matt, that's fine and dandy, but LSU's offense is no good. And you are right. Through 7 games, it is objectively true. LSU's offense is not good. I'm not arguing it is. I'm also going to argue very clearly that A&M has gone on the road twice and given up 40 points on the road twice this year. We talked about Marcel Reed. That game against Notre Dame, he was 17 of 37. Now, he threw for 360, but he was 17 of 37. He was sub 50% on his completions, 2 touchdowns and interception, the stats were buoyed by the 86-yarder and the 45-yarder. The lesson, don't give up the deep shot. They beat Auburn 16-10. By the way, Auburn is the best defense Texas A&M has faced so far this year. Auburn is 30th in the country in total defense. The rest of the teams they faced, Florida 42nd, Mississippi State 53rd, Notre Dame 62nd, UTSA 99th, Arkansas 124th, Utah State 126th. So yes, Texas A&M has put up gaudy offensive statistics against bad defenses. By the way, LSU 26th in the country in total defense. This will be the best defense A&M has faced, and they got to do it on the road. And they got to do it without their best running back, Le'Veon Moss. And it's very likely going to be raining Saturday in Tiger Stadium, which should slow the offense. And they've got history working against them as well. As you know, Texas A&M has not won in Tiger Stadium since they joined the SEC in 2012. They're 0-6 in Tiger Stadium since joining the league. There's a lot of reasons to think maybe those odds makers might be onto something, thinking this game is going to be a lot closer than many of us thought it would be when we're leaving Vanderbilt Stadium in Nashville this past Saturday with the Tigers losing to the Commodores. Tiger Stadium is a hell of a place to play on a Saturday night when it's a great environment, great opponent, full throat. It should be like that with LSU and Texas A&M Saturday. Maybe, just maybe, those odds makers are onto something with a close game in store between the Tigers and the Aggies. Okay, y'all, that's going to do it for us here on today's episode of Locked on LSU. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every single day. If you are listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.